10 years ago, I was driving my daughter Matya to school, to Naramata, grade 3, right? And I'm driving and she turns to me and says, Baba, which is Greek for father, Baba, what does school have to do with anything? This is like 8 in the morning, so I'm barely awake, and now I'm sort of responding to her question, trying to defend our noble education system. And I'm making up things about how the stuff she is learning now will help her when she gets older, that will help her when she grows up. And I see her sort of turning away, looking out the window, and I know that she doesn't believe a single word that I've said. And I drop her off at school, and I'm driving back home, and I think about Matya's question, I realize I didn't believe a single word that I said either. And it got me thinking about my own time here as a student, as a learner, in Penticton, grade 12. Not a stellar student. In fact, one day I was called into the principal's office. He sat me down, opened up my folder with all these reports and marks from when I was a young, bright student, and he expressed his disappointment that he and the other teachers had at my apathy for learning. This was grade 12. I was president of my student council. I was working at my family's restaurant. I just produced a Year of the Child children's concert. I produced a rock and roll record. I played drums. I wrote songs. Our record was on the radio. I was exploring Super 8 filmmaking, theater, photography. And I'm in this office thinking, well, your school has nothing to do with my life. So here's a question for you. How many of you today know young people, perhaps even your own child, who ask this question, which is, what do schools have to do with anything? And if you have hands, do you know any young people who've asked this question, who've said, how does this relate to me? When will I ever use this? What does it have to do with me? Hands high, please. I can hardly see. It's late in the afternoon. Thank you. Put your hands down. How many of you, at one point when you were going to school, asked that very same question? Hands. Oh my goodness, I'm blinded. How many of you believe that students will still ask this question 20 years from now? Terrifying. Isn't that amazing? That we just expect this to happen, to continue? So this is what interests me a lot, is this idea of how do we have this conversation about moving towards learning that matters, learning that is relevant for young people and demonstrates why we learn, demonstrates the beauty and joy of being human. Amazingly enough, every day 7,000 young people drop out of school across North America. And 22% of those people who drop out of Canadian schools report it's because they're bored. And a recent University of Indiana report said that of the kids who are going to school, I think they polled 100,000 students, 66% said they were bored every single day in class, for whatever that's worth. And 72% of the students who graduated said that school was meaningless. And these were kids who actually made it through to grade 12. So clearly the writing is on the wall that a conversation needs to happen about what is our tolerance for this education kind of paradigms to remain. So what I wanted to do this afternoon was just kind of have a conversation about a project that I've started 3 years ago called InStill LIfe, as part of this dialogue towards moving learning towards, I think, mattering. So my mother and I walk into Naramata School about 3 years ago, grade 3, 4, 5 class, 48 kids, with a big bowl of Greek olives and a big plate of vegetarian dolmadis and spinach pies. And we start to eat. That's a bowl of olives there. And we invite the kids to have olives. And we say, hey, how cool is this? These are olives. These are the same olives from the same trees that people 5,000 years ago were eating in Egypt, in Greece, and Rome. And we're eating the very same fruit. Isn't that cool? That we're connected to these people through this little fruit? So we talked about other foreign foods, and then other local foods, and then healthy foods, and then not so healthy foods. And because we live here in the Okanagan, we talked about our own experiences, their experiences, harvesting, cooking, recipes, helping in the kitchen, and just this whole kind of beautiful celebration of food. And then we invited them to come back with their favorite food, fruit or vegetable from home, the next week where we were going to paint some paintings. I told them I bought some canvases for them from our restaurant. Theo's restaurant sponsored the project. So we're going to paint food to celebrate it. But first, we're going to do a little art history tour. So we sort of went back into ancient Egypt, mosaics from Rome, and looked at how do artists look at food in preparation for them as artists about to look at food. And so we had this, 30 or 40 different examples of art. And then finally we went online to a lovely site where the students were enabled to move images and shadow and light and texture and backgrounds and create their own digital still life paintings online. Get familiar with technology and then download it to their portfolios, to their electronic portfolios. And then, after some instruction that way, brought in artists to talk about art and light and shadow. And then we started painting. We started bringing the canvases to life with chalk drawings. And then when they were ready, they started painting. And it was so great just to kind of see them be still with it, to actually observe the fruit that they had arranged in front of them, or the vegetables, and to be still and to take time to mix the colors, to make mistakes, to experiment. And I was watching them, I thought, there's so much multitasking that I see young people do. How wonderful that there was this time for them to be still with this painting. And actually later when we talked to the kids at the end of the year, that was one of the things they said to me, was that it was so neat to have this time to paint and to look at this artwork that we made. Anyways, we had all this leftover food left over, so we ate it. We made soup. We took all the vegetables, made soup, took all the fruit, made a fruit salad. And and again, this is how things work sometimes in the world, I'm driving up to the school, listening to the radio, about to have this lunch with the kids, I hear on the news that it's World Food Day. Serendipitously enough. So I say to the kids, do you know what a World Food Day is, and why would we even have one? And so some of the kids heard about United Nations and said, well, as we know, some places in the world don't have as much food as we have here in the Okanagan. But you know what? I've got this thing here called OliveUs. This is a nonprofit foundation that I've started out of the restaurant to kind of expand the work that we have been doing with schools the last decade. I said, would your class like to work with all of us to bring more food to more people around the world? They said, sure. I said, okay, great. Well, I said, here's a thought. About a decade ago, I worked with this very same class to make gift cards that we sold in the community to raise some money. Would you like to do that with the paintings that you just made? He said, sure. So, came back the next day with the camera, took portraits of the artists and their paintings, and then after that, we talked about microlending, this idea that we're going to give small loans to farmers in developing countries to start or expand their food and agricultural businesses. And in fact, what I did was I created this card game for them to play. And what it was we looked at the different people who are involved in a microlending cycle. First of all, there's the entrepreneur who has the idea to expand or grow their business. In this case, this farmer from Afghanistan wanted $800 to buy seeds and farming supplies to get going. But he's going to work with a field partner who's going to do the training, help him with marketing, and help him to grow and be successful. These are all real things off of the kiva.org website. And then the entrepreneur is going to use the money he gets to buy seeds from the supplier, who obviously supplies seeds to farmers. And then a customer is going to buy vegetables from this person at the market, which allows the entrepreneur to buy things that they cannot produce, like this goat yogurt, from the merchant. So there's a whole cycle. But the thing is, you need someone with the cash to start the whole cycle going. So that's where the students come in. The students are going to be the investors. So they all had these cards, and they found out which group they were in, and talked and got together, and we actually moved money around in these circles. And at the end of time, everyone had money. In fact, the investor had all the money back. Yet everyone else had money too. This is how microlending works. So the only problem was they had no money to give. So we took away all those cards and gave them a new set of cards. Now they were the entrepreneur. So figured out who's going to be their field partner to help them. Who's going to be their supplier? Where are they going to get the supplies from? Who's going to be their customer? Like, who will buy the actual cards from them? And then what are they going to do with the money? And first of all, who's going to invest in them? Because now they're in the same position as the other entrepreneurs are. They have an idea, but they have no money. I said, all of us will invest in you. We'll lend you the money to print your cards. You'll pay us back so we can work with another school as well. The idea is to think in sustainable terms with these projects. It's not a one-shot deal. How do we work with many, and how do those classrooms continue to work? So the cards went to the printers and got fantastically produced and started to sell in our community. And then we started having money come into our account, which was very fun. And so we had to sort of start talking about mathematics, about money and how much gift packs sold for, and 4 times 25 is 100, etc. So then we have loan request films. Our first loan was to a farmer in Tajikistan and to buy a cow. And so the next question was, where the heck is Tajikistan? So out comes a globe and map, and we're looking for where Tajikistan is, but we're looking for it not because it's something on a test or a quiz, but because it's, we just sent $25 there. So in other words, it was geography that was related to a real life, to a real purpose, which is that we are involved with lending money to a farm in Tajikistan, therefore let us know where Tajikistan is. In the same way, we had to find out about charts and graphs to keep track of the information of how many entrepreneurs we've lent money to, how much money have we raised so far, how many cards have we sold and produced. So in other words, the exploration of charts and graphs was not because it was the next chapter in the textbook, but because it was part of our real life project of helping farmers around the world provide more food for their families in the villages. Oh yeah, we brought a farmer in as well to teach them about organic farming, heritage versus modified seeds, and then talked about the potential of seeds and how seeds turn into plants which produce fruits, and those fruits have other seeds, and you just kind of keep on going forever. And very eloquently, the farmer, Tom Tumbach, said to the kids, well, you guys are seeds too, because with this project, you are planting something which is going to be planted again and again, and we'll never see the end of it. How beautiful. We came back to the restaurant a few months later, and we had the kids have a beautiful lunch, and you can't see it, but there's photographs of all the entrepreneurs they've helped so far on the table as well, having lunch with the kids from all around the world. And on the wall behind them is their paintings, which were on display at the restaurant for 3 months. Again, this idea of making their world, not just in the classroom, but public, in the community, a bridge. So we have on the classroom map this map of the world, and it's photographs of real farmers from around the world. So each country is coming to life through these real people stories. The project is, the world is coming to life, but at the same time, the kids are bringing life to the world, which is so fun. It's a circle. It's all about circles. Sustainability. We talked about it before. So what I was really interested in this project was the idea of connecting learning and doing. We have a lot of schools who are doing great things where they have fundraisers, where they send money to needy organizations. But it's often outside of learning. There's bake sales and car washes and penny drives and crazy hat days. But what I wanted to do with this project was, can we make the learning the doing? That inside of curriculum, the result of learning is that we create projects that change the world or that have an impact on our community. In other words, it's all based in reality, in real life. Again, what was talked about this morning, let's base things in real life. I was interested in this project in seeing, could we demonstrate to students the interconnectedness of learning, how math and science and English and history and social and technology and art all have to do with the one subject which is called life. It's all part of it. It's all part of being human. And projects are all connected. But often in school we chop it up into little subjects, especially in the higher grades, and we lose touch of the fact that why we're even there. In other words, are we there to get educated, or are we there to be citizens? And what does it mean to be a citizen? This idea of demonstrating to students, can you see yourself as a student being interconnected to the rest of the planet? This interconnectedness of life, how you are part of a system around the globe. And that by your work, by your paintings, your own artwork from your own hand, that you are creating change in the world. So that's sort of what I was aiming for this project, was to demonstrate that. And then in Queen's Park, we did another project which revolved around apples. Again, this idea of regional learning, of seeing what was current. In this case, it was about apple farmers having sort of half the fees as they had before, so we wanted to focus on apples. Instead of using canvases from China at $10 each, we used pizza boxes for 50 cents each, which made great containers later, and also played with the whole idea of where does our food come from, especially with his group from Queen's Park School who love pizza. And they drew wonderful apples. We spent a day in my Aunt Sophie's orchard, and we looked at the world, and we touched things, and we played with moss, and we stepped on cactus, and we made vegetarian dolmades, of course, because it's more about food than anything else. My mom showed them how to roll grape leaves, which were growing on the property. We had fun. And then under this willow tree, we again looked at the micro-lending with a card game, exchanged that, played the roles, a circle of lending, and then we gave them their cards, which were printed and premiered that day. There's a front cover. And the inside there's a photograph of each of the students. Each one has their own card and their own bio, which they write. And the back, a bit of a description. Rotary Penticton has sort of really supported us and wants us to grow this project even larger, which is great. And so the first year was 1 school in Naramata. Last year was 3 schools. Currently, we're in 10 schools. and we'll see where it goes. Well, let me go back here for a second. This is fun. So then we have lunch again. Did I mention eating? A big white tablecloth under the apple trees. No disposable, no single-use plastic, because it's all china and stainless steel cutlery and beautifulness. White tablecloths, chicken souvlakis, the food they had made earlier that day, the baked apples they had made, and then the wonderful and talented Ari Newfield came by, played for the kids while they were having lunch. My mom brought over some greens she collected from the actual farm, and then it just started to thunderstorm. Everyone got completely drenched with rain. Ari kept playing. The kids were singing with Ari. It was nuts, pandemonium. We're having fun. It was amazing. And then when the rain stopped, we wrote poetry for an hour about the day we just had. And again, the teacher brought in what he was currently teaching in his unit on English and literature and poetry into that session under the trees. Then the kids had the challenge to say, how do we sell these cards? And one kid said, hey, let's sell them at the farmer's market. So that weekend, they're at the farmer's market, selling the cards, talking to people about what they're doing, explaining to people what microlending is. These are grade 5s. So they sold like $500 worth of cards on the first day. And this guy, who was a very quiet young man, decided he should wear a sandwich board. So he made a sandwich board overnight and walked up and down the farmer's market with cards saying, this is what we're doing. And it worked. So amazingly enough, this year we're in 10 classrooms around British Columbia. We partner now with students in free enterprise. We mentioned them earlier this morning about how brilliant they were. So last summer, I sat down and I trained some students from SIFE, and now they went into the classrooms in Kelowna and Penticton, and we also have one in Vancouver. And they are, again, sort of seeing, how does this project work? How can we scale this so that more students can have this opportunity to have a real interconnected experience and to see how life in school sort of revolves around real projects? One of the girls said to me, they left me a note at Queen's Park, said, this project has changed my way of thinking and helped me believe, is what Shelby said. So for me, same. This project has also changed, or I guess reaffirmed my way of thinking, but most importantly has helped me believe that we do have the opportunity to create change, massive change, in education. And it's not going to happen with legislated mandates, either from a provincial or state sort of authority that says, let's put meaning into schools. It's going to happen in communities like this, grassroots level, parents getting involved, helping teachers create things, businesses, Greek restaurants, garage stations, whatever you have. Businesses can get involved and support classrooms and bring real life into learning. And of course, if you see teachers who have this spark, who have this desire to help connect the world or help students see their connection to this world, then you can support them in many ways. So I do believe we have the power, and we also have the obligation to continue this conversation about how we can create change in education for the benefit of our children. If we were to look and solve all these problems we've heard about today, the scale of these, how can we begin to solve those problems unless we can see ourselves as ecosystems, see us as humans as part of a big thing, and the interconnectedness of it all, to see that it matters that we learn because we matter to the planet. So, if you're interested in continue this conversation, let's talk. And let's see where we can take it. Thank you very much.